Welcome back to my next playthrough series. Yes, this time it's War of the Ring, 2nd edition. I've played quite a bit of the 1st edition and not so much of this one. Some of the rules have been clarified a little bit, but it's still quite a complex game. However, I will be playing it from beginning to end. I am not going to do a rules breakdown. We will see the rules in play as we play. There are a couple of pretty good videos out there on YouTube already that explain the rules of the game. I'll be playing from the perspective of the Free Peoples, the Fellowship, and that's where we're going to begin. So it's a very complicated game. It's a very long game, but it is probably at least top 2 or 3 games of all time for 2 players. It's absolutely incredible if you can wrap your head around all of the rules, of which there are many. So it's quite a sweeping game, basically retelling the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. There are 2 ways for the shadow player, the Red Armies here, to win. That is either to corrupt Frodo and Sam, Frodo basically, with the ring, get 12 corruption, and he succumbs to the power of the ring, and the Free Peoples lose the game. The other way to lose the game is for the shadow player to capture, you can see here, like, there are strongholds, there are settlements, which are cities, and they have these little victory point markers on them. Strongholds are worth 2 victory points. If the shadow player captures them, cities are worth 1 victory point. If the shadow player ever gets 10 victory points of captured location at the end of an entire turn, then the shadow player will win that way as well. There are 2 ways for the Free Peoples nations to win, and that is by having Frodo and Sam get to Mount Doom and toss the ring into the Crack of Doom. Get rid of it. Then the shadow player loses, Free People win. The other way for the Free People to win, which is nigh impossible, is for them to capture 4 points worth of shadow, either city or strongholds, at the end of a round to win a military victory, which I've never seen happen. I suppose it's possible. You have to be very lucky with your dice rolls. Like I said, there's a ton of rules in the game. There are cards in the game. There are 6 phases to each turn. And if you look, there's these huge player aids which have a huge glossary inside of all the terms you're going to need. Basically goes through the game turn, which, as you can see, is very complicated. How to resolve a battle, how to activate Free Peoples nations, how to advance on the political track. These are all the dice, which are basically the heart of the game. You're going to be rolling these dice and using the dice faces as activations, which I will explain as we go. Very intense game. So I'm just going to go ahead and start, I think, and you'll see how the game plays. Like I said, there are some really good instructional videos on YouTube as to how to play and rules overviews and stuff. I can't do that here because it will take forever to go over it. We'll just get into the gameplay. So our first phase is recover action dice and draw event cards. Okay, so there are these lovely marbleized red dice for the shadow player, and there's all kinds of different faces on them, which I'll explain as we use the dice for actions. And then there are not as many of the blue dice representing the Free Peoples, has some slightly different symbols on them. Beginning of the game, the shadow player has 7 dice in their pool, and the Free Peoples have 4. And that's how it works. There are 2 other Free Peoples dice that can come into play later in the game, and that is if you bring in Aragorn as Isildur, Aragorn, heir to Isildur, it would bring in an extra die. Right now he starts off as Strider, and then we have Gandalf the Grey, who is the leader of the Fellowship at the moment. He can become Gandalf the White, which will also bring another die into play, as long as those characters are in play and alive in the map of Middle-earth will get to use those extra dice. There are 3 extra dice that can come in for the Shadow player. That's from the Witch King, Saruman, and the Mouth of Sauron, and they can come into play again through card effects. There are these huge size cards now in the 2nd edition, and we'll get to these here in a second because that's the next part. So this is the starting dice pool. So we'll be rolling them. I'll be using my dice tower to do that. The next part of the recover action dice and draw event cards is there are event cards for both the Free People's player, which have these backs to them. This is the character die, this is the character cards. These are the strategy cards. Strategy's got the flag, character's got the sword. We get 1 of each. These are the 2 cards I've drawn for the Free Peoples. We're going to look at them, explain them a little bit. And then I've also drawn a couple cards for the Shadow player, and their card backs look like this. Again, character cards and strategy cards, and they have things on them which generally are not good for the Fellowship. And we have things on our cards that are not good for the Shadow player. So we're trying to get the ring to Mount Doom, destroy it, or have a military victory. Shadow is trying to just crush everything in sight. I should mention too that when we lose units from the Free Peoples, they are out of the game. They will not be coming back. So once we recruit units for like Rohan or Minas Tirith, the Men of Gondor, and they get destroyed, or the elves, they're out of the game. So there's a limited supply. Not so with the forces of the Shadow, so Sauron's Uruk-hai, or just the regular goblins and orcs and trolls. For the Shadow player, Sauron forces, they just keep coming back. There's no end to them. So that's another sort of important aspect of the game. And as you can see, the map is just huge. I can't even get the whole thing on camera. I'd have to suspend my camera from the ceiling to try and get it all in. But I'll be zooming around to different parts of the board as we need to. Other thing I should mention is Frodo and Sam start in Rivendell. And they have the ring. They're hidden at the moment from the Shadow player. And that's also an important part of the game. Wow, there's so much to explain in this game. Just going to get right into it. I'm going to zoom down on these cards before we roll the dice here. And so you can see kind of the anatomy of these cards, what they can do for us. You can never have more than 6 cards in your hand at a time. That's for the Shadow and Free People's player. If you do, you must immediately discard down to 6 cards, and the cards you discard are out of the game. They're not coming back. And so there you have it. So we've drawn 1 character card, 1 strategy card. Let's zoom down and take a look at them, and I'll explain kind of what they do. And then I think for this opening episode, we're going to end up rolling the dice. And then we're probably going to have the Fellowship phase, the hunt allocation, and then we're going to get into the next episode will be actually using the dice to perform actions, because again, there is so much going on in this game. It's almost overwhelming. I hope to try to explain everything as I'm going. Right, so as part of the turn, we're not going to look at the Shadow player's cards, because that's going to be hidden information for this playthrough, but we are playing from the perspective of the Free People. So let's take a look at the 2 cards we've drawn and see what we've got. Alright, so this is a zoom in of the 2 cards we drew. This was the character card, and this was the strategy card. So the first one we have is Elven Cloaks. And you'll notice right off the bat there is an icon in the top left and an icon in the top right. The top left is the Palantir, and there are Palantir sides on these dice, which means whenever you roll that symbol on the die, you can play a card, any card, because they all have the Palantir, even the Shadow player. You can play a card by doing that with that die. Or you can draw a card from either deck by using the Palantir symbol. But we'll get into that when we roll the dice and we start using dice. But anyway, so we have Elven Cloaks. It also, I should mention, it also has a symbol in the top right corner. You can use the die face. Say we rolled this on the die, a sword. We can play this card because it has a sword symbol. Anyway, we'll get more into that with dice. So we have Elven Cloaks. It says the Elven Cloak special hunt tile is now in play. So there are regular hunt tiles, which are in my nice Crown Royal bag, and you'll see how that works again while we play. There are also special hunt tiles, and they come into play when we get into when and if we get Frodo and Sam and the Fellowship, if there's anyone left with them, into Mordor. This then will come into play. All right, it says add the tile to the hunt pool when the Fellowship is on the Mordor track. Explains it right there. That's the top part of the card. You notice this line here. The bottom part is for battles between armies, and we can use this card for either the top part or the bottom part, but not both. It says it is a gift, so this would be the battle part at the bottom. Play if the defending army is in the same region as the Fellowship. Fellowship is in Rivendell right now. Add 1 to all dice roll on your combat roll, and leader rerolls. Will make sense when we get into battles. I will explain it now. The next card we have, strategy card. Eomer, son of Eomund. We can recruit 1 Rohan unit, regular or elite, and 1 Rohan leader in a free Rohan region containing a settlement. Settlements are towns, cities, and strongholds. So much to this game. I hope you can follow along at least a little bit. It is an extremely fun 2-player game, and it takes a long time, but hey, it is what it is. And the bottom part, again, is for battles, and it says Valor. Play if the Free People's elite unit is in the battle. So basically, elite units are the horseback units that you've seen. Something like this is an elite unit, and usually just the little single guys are the regular units. So you know. And for the Shadow player, they have the big plastic pieces are elites, the little plastic pieces are regulars. So leaders are gray units like this, that's a leader, and the Nazgul are leaders for Shadow player. So again, so much to this game. I could spend probably at least an hour explaining everything, but we're not going to do that. So basically what it means, if the Free Peoples have an elite unit in their battle, add 1 to all dice on your combat roll. So when we roll dice for combat, which are these little guys here, we can add +1 to the results if we have an elite. And yeah, we'll get into the details of battles when we have them. So these are the 2 cards we're going to be starting with. So that's basically anatomy of a card a little bit, and I think the next thing then we're going to do is we're going to go over to the Fellowship phase, which actually there's a few steps there. So like I said, I showed you there's 6 phases to each turn. This is the very first phase, which is just getting our action dice and getting 2 cards. Next is the Fellowship phase. We'll go over that here in a second. Okay, so way up at the top of this huge map is the Fellowship, and it's represented by the little Frodo and Sam gray figure token. There's a box over here on the board where there are individual plastic miniatures for each of the Fellowship, so Gimli, Legolas, Gandalf, Boromir, Aragorn, Merry, and Pippin. Oh, I know there's so much to this game. My head's already starting to spin. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this on my channel because my brain may explode. But anyways, such an awesome game. I have to at least attempt it here on my channel. So what we're doing here now on the Fellowship phase, we can declare the location of the Fellowship. Basically, the Fellowship is hidden from the Shadow player at this moment. They only know sort of their last known location, which is Rivendell, but they don't know exactly where they are. There's a track right at the very top of the board here, and it has a little red token, which is the amount of corruption that Frodo has. And again, if it goes all the way to 12, the Shadow player wins the game. It means Frodo's overcome by the corruption of the ring. And when it's ring side up like this, it means the Fellowship is hidden. And right now they're hidden. If it's flipped over, they've been revealed. You see the Eye of Sauron there. Fellowship's revealed, and there's all kinds of things that happen when that takes place. So there's a number 1 to 12 here at the top of the track. When the Fellowship moves, They don't physically move on the board yet. They stay at their last known location, and this token moves. When and if they declare themselves, we can say right now, yep, we are in Rivendell. Boom, we've declared ourselves. If we're in a stronghold of a free people's nation like they are right now in Rivendell, they can heal 1 corruption. But right now we have no corruption because it's the beginning of the game. So we wouldn't want to do that. So we won't bother. So that's what we can do. The other thing we can do right now in the fellowship phase is we can change the guide of the fellowship. And right now, our guide from the fellowship is Gandalf the Grey. So let's take a look at him, because he's got some special abilities, and see if we want to keep him as the guide of the fellowship. The only other one we can change him to would be Strider right now. And there's rules for this, because we couldn't have, say, Legolas guiding, because his leadership ability is less than Gandalf and Strider. So only Gandalf and Strider can lead the fellowship right now out of Rivendell. So let's take a quick look at the Gandalf card. And then we have to decide if we want Strider or Gandalf as the leader of our fellowship at the moment. Okay, so right now we start the game with Gandalf the Grey as the leader. Now, the things above the line here are when Gandalf is the leader of the fellowship. The guide of the fellowship, it'll say guide here, and same with Strider, and the stuff below is when and if we want to separate one of the fellowship members from the fellowship, so they go off into Middle Earth on their own, maybe to join another army, maybe to activate another, the men, the dwarves, they want to go out and activate them for war. So we'll get into all this later on. So right now, Gandalf, it says guide after you use an event action die. An event action die. To play an event card, you may immediately draw an event card from the deck matching the type of that card. So if we wanted to play that sword card, we use this event action die, then we can draw another sword card. So he allows us to actually use an event card and draw another one, so we can get more event cards into our hand, which of course give us benefits and stuff. The ability Strider has, and we're not looking at the bottom ones because that's when they separate from the fellowship. So the Strider one is a guide. You may use any of your action die results to hide a revealed fellowship. Okay, normally you have to use the sword icon to hide the fellowship. But with Strider as the leader of the fellowship, you can use any die face to hide the fellowship. It becomes important because if the hunt is successful, Frodo and Sam are revealed by the shadow player, they are vulnerable. And lots of the shadow player cards do very bad things to the fellowship if they are revealed. So right now we've got to decide, do we want to leave Gandalf the Grey as our leader, or do we want to change it up to Strider? And I think for the first turn here, we're going to leave Gandalf the Grey as the leader. So basically we have this stack of, so we've got Legolas, Boromir, Gimli, we got Merry, Pippin, and Frodo, Sam, and then Gollum eventually becomes the leader of the fellowship when everyone else is gone. So for right now, we're going to leave it as Gandalf. And already one sort of minor correction to what I've just told you, which was incorrect. The event is the Palantir symbol. So if we use this with Gandalf as a leader, if we use the event die to play any event card, then we can draw another event card. Just to clarify, I used the sword symbol, which is not correct. It's the Palantir symbol. Okay. Yeah, haven't even begun playing and already getting a few things messed up. That's the fellowship phase. So the next phase is the hunt allocation, basically. Shadow player may now place a number of action dice in the hunt box with the eye symbol up. What that means, of course, the shadow player's got 7 dice. He can just right now take any number of his dice up to the number of companions still in the fellowship. So he could put 2, 4, so he could put 7 dice. He could put all 7 dice if he wanted it, but he couldn't do any other actions. He can put this eye symbol into the Hunt for the Ring box. So that's the next step. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that. The shadow player is going to put one of his dice into the hunt pool. So just go ahead and do that right now. So right here in the bottom left of the huge board is the Hunt for the Ring dice pool box. So he's going to take one of his dice and put it in here. Now what this means is when the Fellowship tries to move secretly across Middle Earth, if there's any dice, shadow dice in this pool here, in this box, he gets to roll that many six-sided dice to try and find the location of the Fellowship, possibly causing them corruption, possibly revealing them. There's a whole bunch of effects that has to do with those tiles you draw out of the tile bag. Again, so many rules, you're probably going, this is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. So we're going to put one here for the shadow player, and now we're on to the action roll. So we're going to roll those action dice. I'm going to leave the episode off here for today. Once we roll the dice, because when we come back in the next episode, we're going to start taking actions using the dice, and that's the meat and potatoes of the game. So I'm going to get the dice tray out, and we're going to roll up the shadow dice, and we're going to roll up the Free People's dice, and we're going to wrap it up for today. Yep, it's a beast of a game. A beast of a game, but it is awesome. All right, so there's only 6 dice now that the shadow player has to roll, which is a lot. 2 more than what the Free Peoples have. We're going to roll these up, and we're going to just see what we get. So, we get 1, 2, 3 sword symbols, 2 flag symbols, and a muster flag symbol. So that is what the I don't know if you can see that. That is what the shadow player is going to be able to use for actions on their turn. All right, likewise, we are now going to roll the Free People's dice and see what they get. And they get 2 Palantir symbols, a leader symbol, sword, and a muster and army movement dice. I'm just going to zoom in on them so you can see them. And that'll be how we're going to end off our episode for today, because it's gone on quite long enough. And when we come back in the next episode, we're going to get right into doing all these really cool actions. So we're going to look at these dice and wrap up. All right, so I'm not sure quite how clear that's going to be. So we had 2 Palantirs for our Free Peoples. This is a muster, and I guess I might as well use the actual term. A muster and an army. They're called army symbol, is the flags. And that's a character die. For the shadow player, they have 3 character dice. They have 1 of the muster army dice, and they also have 2 of the, I guess these are upside down, pennants, or banners, I guess. And they have 2 army dice. We're going to get into the details of how those dice work in our next episode. And yeah, I will be playing this from beginning to end. So either the shadow player is going to win, or the Fellowship is going to win, or the Free Peoples. I don't know. This is a long game. It's probably going to take me the better part of a month to get through it. I hope you're not bored to tears. It is a fantastic, probably one of the best 2-player games ever created so far that I know of. And I do believe if you want a good laugh, watch the Shut Up and Sit Down review for War of the Ring. It is actually quite good and give you a pretty good idea of what they think of the game. So thanks so much for watching along. Thanks for your comments, subscriptions, likes. I know I'm crazy for trying to do this one, but hey, I've done Twilight Imperium 4 on my channel. I've also done Quest for Middle Earth, so what's War of the Ring? Just another huge, complicated game that I can do here on my channel. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.